Essay 230. Yeah, everyone, this is here Ravi Agrawal, and the essay which we are going to study, I don't know whether you know about its content or not, but you know Essay 230 is audit documentation. We've been studying since IPCC, right? So audit documentation. So what is there in this essay? Damn easy essay. Bacha type essay. What you have to do? Just you have to know the definition and what is the nature and purpose of audit documentation, and just one more question and it's done. Alright then, so what is the definition of audit documentation? Audit documentation, whenever you hear this word audit documentation, what do you understand? Working paper, kind of some record or something? Exactly. So audit documentation is a record. Okay, record of audit procedure performed. Okay, it is nothing but relevant audit evidence obtained and conclusion the auditor reached. So it is just about three things: record of audit procedure performed, relevant audit evidence obtained, and conclusion the auditor reached. So what is audit documentation? It's the record of audit procedure performed. Okay, it's the audit evidence obtained and conclusion the auditor reached. Working paper. So this is about audit documentation. Now the next question is nature and purpose of audit documentation. What is the nature of audit documentation? Alright, then audit documentation provides only two things, right? The evidence of the basis for audited conclusion. Okay, so when you turn the pages of audit document, you understand that this is the evidence of the basis for auditor conclusion. Okay, the evidence that audit was planned and performed as per SN law. Okay, there's nothing but it just provides you the evidence of the basis for the auditor conclusion. Evidence that the audit was planned and performed as per SN law. Okay, so this is the nature of audit documentation. So audit documentation provide you two things. One, evidence of the basis for auditor conclusion. Evidence of the basis for the auditor conclusion. Evidence that the audit was planned and performed as per SN law. So what did we understand till now of Essay 230? One, what is audit documentation? It's nothing but a record of audit procedure performed. It's like audit evidence obtained and conclusion the auditor reached. So this is nothing but working paper. Okay, what is the nature of audit documentation? Audit documentation provide two things: evidence of basis for auditor conclusion, evidence that audit was planned and performed. Now, what is the purpose of audit documentation? Just read any 4 points here. One, that engagement team to plan and perform the audit. So it helps the purpose of audit documentation. It helps the engagement team to plan and perform the audit, because you can turn the pages of audit documentation. You can see the last year audit documentation. You can plan and perform your audit. Number one. Number two, then you see the engagement team to be accountable for its work. Okay, it makes engagement team accountable for its work. Yeah, naturally, because he knows, the guy who is doing the work, he knows that his work can be by documentation it is made accountable, right? So engagement team to be made accountable for his work. And then retaining a record of continuing significance to future audit, right? His work will be retaining a record of continuing significance to future audit. And what else? Member of engagement team who is responsible for direction, supervision and review of the work. Okay, so you can check your audit documentation, can understand that who is that a member of engagement team who is responsible for direction, supervision, review of the work. So what is the purpose of audit documentation? Once again, what is the purpose of audit documentation? Very simple, that it helps the engagement team to plan, perform the audit. Members of the engagement team who is responsible for direction, supervision and review of the work, you can understand through audit documentation. Engagement team has to be accountable for his work. Okay, and then retaining a record of continuing significance to future audit. So this was about purpose of audit documentation. Now there's a term called experienced auditor. Alright, so what do you mean by experienced auditor? It's nothing, very simple. An individual who has a practical audit experience and reasonable understanding of four things: audit process, SAN law, business environment, auditing and financial reporting issue. So who is the experienced auditor, guys? So an individual who has a practical audit experience, okay, and reasonable understanding of four things: audit process, SAN law, business environment, auditing and financial reporting issue. So he is the guy who is called experienced auditor. Alright, then the last question of Essay 230, very simple. I have made a mnemonic for it: documentation of audit procedure performed. Whatever you do during audit, that is audit procedure performed and audit evidence. So how do you documentation of audit procedure performed and audit evidence? What is the shortcut for this? DEAF. Okay, like documentation of audit procedure performed and audit evidence. What is the shortcut for it? DEF. D is departure from relevant requirement. D is like what all requirement or the law that you didn't follow. Departure from relevant requirement. Departure from relevant requirement. D. E, event arising after the date of audit report. E is event arising after the date of audit procedure. Oh my god, I forgot the question. Let's check it once again. Documentation of audit procedure perform and audit evidence. Def. D is departure from relevant requirement. E is event arising after the date of audit procedure. A is assembly of audit file. Assembly of audit file. F form and content and extent of audit documentation. That's it. Yeah, that's it. So what? Let's understand documentation of audit procedure perform and audit evidence. Documentation of audit procedure perform and audit evidence. Def. D is departure from relevant requirement. E is event arising after the date of audit report, and A is assembly of audit file, and F is form, content and extent of audit documentation. So let's understand what is D. Departure from relevant requirement. Okay, in exceptional circumstances, there is being departure from relevant requirement. It can happen, right? There can be departure from relevant requirement. So what do you have to document here in this case? Not very simple. Auditor shall document the reason for departure and the alternative procedure performed. So simple. You departed from relevant requirement. Yes. What do I have to document in this case? Reason for departure and alternative procedure performed. Simple. So D is done. Next, E is event arising after the date of audit report. Okay, that is something event arising after the date of audit procedure. So here in that, if in exceptional circumstances auditor performs, in that case what the auditor does, perform new or additional audit procedure. Okay, so what do I have to report in this case? Very simple. You just document ki bhai what was that circumstances encountered. Okay, and what new or additional procedure did you perform, and when and by whom the changes to audit documentation were made and reviewed. Okay, so here DEAF, I want to know the full form once again. DEAF. D is departure from relevant requirement. E is event arising after the audit report. A is assembly of final audit file. F form and content of extent of audit documentation. So we were saying departure from relevant requirement. So in that case, you departed from relevant requirement. So what do I have to do? What do I have to document? Reason for departure. Okay, and then alternative procedure perform. Okay, then event arising after the date of audit report. What did you do? Something in that exceptional circumstances the auditor perform new or the additional audit procedure. Here what do you have to document? The circumstances in content number 1. What all new and additional procedure did you perform, and when and by whom the changes to audit documentation were made and reviewed. Okay, DEA. A, assembly of final audit file. A is assembly of final audit file. So it's very easy, IPCC content. Here, auditor shall assemble the audit documentation in an audit file after the date of audit report. Okay, so when do you have to assemble? After the date of audit. So auditor shall assemble the documentation after the date of audit. Okay, I will assemble after the date of audit report on timely basis. Then this auditor shall not delete or discard audit documentation of any nature before the end of a retention period, that is 7 years. So this already. Auditor shall not delete or discard audit documentation till when? 7 years retention period. And third and lastly, if you want to modify, if you want to add any new content, want to add something, what do you have to do? Here in this case, audit file must document after assembly audit file, then must document 2 things. You just have to do, you want to add something, you want to modify the existing document, what do you have to do? Specific reason for modification. You got to write that. You got to document that this was the reason, specific reason for me modifying it. Number 2, lastly, when and by whom they were made and reviewed. Okay, so what did we understand? Assembly. Okay, we can assemble the audit file when? After the date of audit report. If I want to delete something after 7 years, and then if you want to, in the existing audit document, you want to modify something, actually you want to add something, you can do it, but specific reason for modification and when, by, and whom they were made and reviewed. Okay, DEF. Okay, D is departure from relevant requirement. DEA. E is event arising after date of report. A is assembly of final audit file, and last form and content and extent of audit documentation. So simple, form, content and extent of audit documentation. What are you going to document? See here, you have to document that is sufficient to enable experienced auditor to understand. How much are you going to document? That is sufficient to enable an experienced auditor to understand. Okay, so just understand nature, timing, extent of audit procedure. So here you write item tested. Okay, what else? Who performed the audit work? Okay, who reviewed the audit work? All right. So in nature, timing, extent of audit procedure, I'm going to write. Auditor is going to record item tested. Who tested the item? Who performed the audit work? Okay, who reviewed the audit work? No, write it. Then result of audit procedure performed and evidence obtained. Result of audit procedure performed and audit evidence obtained. This also you write it. Document it. Significant matter that arised during audit and conclusion reached thereon. You also this also you have to write. And lastly, in form, content and documentation of audit, you say that if auditor identifies any inconsistent information, then auditor shall document how he addressed the inconsistency. So simple, na? If you while auditing, if you identify any inconsistent information, then auditor shall document like how he addressed that inconsistency. So done. Yeah, done. I said 230. If you know it, audit documentation. What do you mean audit documentation? It's just nothing but it's record of audit procedure performed. Okay, it's just the audit evidence obtained and conclusion reached thereon working paper. Okay, so you just learned two more things over here. Like what is the nature of the audit documentation? Is nothing but it's just an evidence. What is the nature of it? Evidence of basis for audit conclusion. Evidence that audit was planned and performed. What is the purpose? Very simple. Engagement team was it helps the engagement team to plan and perform. Okay, it helps a member of engagement team who is responsible for direction, supervision and review. Engagement team is to be accountable for its work. Retention, record of continuing significance of future audit. And then who's the experienced auditor? Who's that person? Okay, he's the individual with a practical knowledge and reasonable understanding of four things: audit process, SN law, a business environment, auditing and financial reporting issue. And the last question, audit or documentation of audit process performed and audit evidence, that is DEF. D is departure from relevant requirement. E is event arising after the date of audit report. A is assembly of audit file. And last, F, form, content and extent of audit documentation. So I hope you're loving and enjoying it. And if you're really loving and enjoying and waiting for the next essay, WhatsApp me on 8334 866 117. And signing off, your rocking faculty for CA Final Audit, CA Ravi Agrawal.